Hello, the webinar will begin shortly. Please note that this session is being recorded. The chat and Q&A boxes can be found at the bottom of your screen. To maximize your experience, attendees may use the Q&A and chat functions to communicate where you're joining from today. For technical support, please dial 1-888-799-9666 extension 2 for assistance with Zoom support. Hello, my name is Meredith Gibbons, the Professional Development Associate here at NACE. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Job Expectations of the Class of COVID, Hiring Early Career Talent in the New Economy. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce Brad Schneider, VP of Strategic Consulting at Criteria Corp, and Laura Caccaro, Chief People Officer at iCIMS. Take it away.
Yeah, thanks very much, Meredith. And thanks to each of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to spend a few moments with us to talk about job expectations of the class of COVID, hiring early career talent in the new economy. Today, we'll be covering three things: candidate sentiment on the hiring experience, what the class of COVID expects from us as employers, and key takeaways that you can use today to help you recruit top entry-level talent. This work is based on an extensive survey conducted by us at Criteria Corp. Criteria is a talent success company. We help organizations make more objective, evidence-based talent decisions that both reduce bias and drive outcomes. In the campus hiring space, this means that we help you identify and hire individuals who are successful today and also have the potential to be successful in higher level leadership roles with your organizations in the future. And we do this through the use of assessments, so online tests and online interviewing. So let's talk a little bit about the survey. We surveyed 1,967 early career job candidates during the pandemic. And the reason we did it was we wanted to better understand the state of the current talent landscape and to gain insight on job seeker motivations and priorities. So let's go ahead and tell you what we found. The first thing I want to point out are the top candidate priorities. So what matters to your job candidates the most right now? And the reason this is important is because it enables you to align your strategies and selection processes and recruiting processes to align with what candidates really want. Coming in at number one, candidates wanted better work-life balance. So they want to come in, they want to be productive, and then they want to go home. They want to do things, they want to experience things, they want to have their own lives. And if there's an upside to the pandemic at all, it's the movement of working from home that enables your candidates and new hires to have a bit of a better work-life balance by removing the commute from their day. Number two was opportunities for career advancement, and this is really a win for everyone. Candidates want to know what job they're going into today, and they want to know what the opportunities with your organization are for their future. And so the more that you can demonstrate this during your recruiting process, the greater advantage you'll have. They want a better work culture, they want a better manager and or team. So they want things like psychological safety, the ability to take chances and make mistakes without incredibly unfavorable repercussions. They want to work with people who are competent, that they could trust, and they want a sense of mission. And that gets to having a sense of purpose at work, knowing how their role fits within the broader goals of the business. You'll notice things like compensation and benefits are actually toward the bottom of the list. And so while these things are important, there are certainly many things that you can do to attract and hire top candidates without necessarily impacting comp or benefits too extensively. Let's go ahead to the next. So the question becomes, are candidates going to get these jobs that they want? And if you ask them, they'll tell you yes. 87% of graduate job seekers are confident that they're going to find a job that satisfies them. In fact, only 2% of candidates said that they were just a little bit less confident in terms of their ability to find the job that they want. So when they're going through your selection process, where do you lose them? Where do organizations lose candidates? And there are a handful of things that really jumped out at us in our survey. Number one is that the salary didn't meet expectations. And there's something of a disconnect between what candidates feel they should get for entry-level positions and what organizations are willing to offer for those same roles. There's a solution to this, though, and that's being transparent about salary and comp within your selection process so that you could quickly get to a point where everyone knows that they're in the same ballpark. And so you spend time with those candidates that you've got the greatest likelihood of having an accepted offer from. Poor communication from the employer or recruiter was number 2 on the list. This is a relatively easy fix, again, with being transparent, communicating early and communicating often with job candidates, letting them know where they are in the process. Lack of career advancement opportunities was number 3, which we touched on. So being able to share what the upward mobility and what the opportunities are with candidates, incredibly important. And it's a really nice fit with campus recruiting, where so many organizations are looking to not just hire someone who's going to be effective today, but also create this feeder pool for more senior level positions. So talk about it with them and let them know what those opportunities could be if they do well. Negative reviews about the culture of an organization. Years ago, I remember hearing that if someone has a good experience with an organization, they might tell 5 people, or they might tell nobody. And if they have a bad experience, maybe they would tell 10 people or 20 people. That was before the internet. Today, if you have a bad experience, you can tell 1 million people with the click of a button. And so it's really important to monitor your online presence with social media, checking things like Glassdoor and other sites to see what people are writing about your organization, and also to obviously treat your employees and your candidates well. Something that we all often see on these sites is someone who applied for a job, they didn't get it, and then they write a negative review. Well, you could stem that tide by being transparent in your recruiting process, selection process, being responsive, and treating candidates with an overwhelming amount of courtesy and respect to reduce the odds that they're going to write something negative in the event that you end up not hiring them. The recruitment process taking too long. We did a webinar several months ago where I was shocked to see how quickly top candidates get hired. If you don't bring them on board within about a week and a half was the number that we found, somebody else is going to hire them. And so if you want the best candidates, you've got to move fast. And testing is really a terrific way to speed up that hiring process, because you get results immediately and can quickly advance people to the interview. Not offering flexible work options. In today's world, remote is definitely in. And if you're not offering it, it's something that you really ought to seriously consider, because the bulk of organizations are. And it's just such a benefit when it comes to work-life balance for early career candidates. It's something of an expectation that they'll be able to get. Sometimes they just receive a better offer. This is often related to taking too long in your selection process. They're also looking at diversity within organizations, and diversity is all about being valued for individual differences. And let's face it, every single person is unique in some kind of way, and they want to be valued for that. A lot of people talk about diversity and the importance of it, and it's the right thing to do, and it's moral and it's ethical. Let me add one more thing to the list. It helps organizations improve because differences of backgrounds tend to result in differences of opinions, differences of ideas, oftentimes related to how to solve a problem. And how many times have you been in a situation where you've had a way of solving a problem and someone else had another way, and together, by hearing each other out, you came up with a third option that was better than either of you would have come up with? There's a relationship between diversity and innovation, and the companies that we work with who are strong on diversity are outpacing those organizations that are not. There's problems with the traditional hiring process. About a third of candidates feel disadvantaged by things like resumes, and of course, early career candidates, they're not going to have a heck of a lot on their resumes anyway. And about half of candidates feel that the experience that they do have holds them back from finding better opportunities. And let's face it, if we see someone who has experience in a specific niche, it's very easy to say, well, they did it there, they could do it again here, and you hire them again for a pretty similar thing. So experience can actually pigeonhole somebody and limit their opportunities. And early career candidates feel this tremendously. What's interesting is that minority candidates feel this even stronger. And so it's important to have a selection process that doesn't overly weight the individual's experience or overly weight that they happen to get into a top tier school, whether it was 100% due to their ability, or maybe they had some advantages that others don't. There's no way to know that. So leveling the playing field and using a selection process that gives everybody an equal opportunity is advantageous, and it's more valued by candidates. So how do you do that? Well, no surprise, assessments are a way to level the playing field. About 4/5 of entry-level job seekers agree that assessments help them demonstrate their potential beyond their experience. And of course they do. You can use assessments to quickly identify someone's cognitive ability, their intellectual horsepower, their ramp, if you will, for jobs today and higher level jobs in the future, and also their personality characteristics: empathy, receptivity to feedback, being a good team player, motivation, drive, all of these things important, integrity across virtually every position, as well as specific personality characteristics like customer service orientation for CS roles, sales ability and persuasiveness for sales positions, emotional maturity for leader level roles. All of these can be picked up by assessments very quickly, and you can administer them to anyone, even on the smallest of cell phones, leveling the playing field, giving everyone a fair opportunity, and not pigeonholing individuals based on their experiences. What types of assessments do candidates like? Well, game-based assessments are at the top of the list, and game-based assessments are of course, where you're measuring core capabilities through the use of games. A quick example is when you look at spatial reasoning, which is a type of intelligence. Instead of having a multiple choice test, you can have the person play a game of Tetris within a test, where you're picking up the same spatial reasoning capabilities, but in a more fun and engaging and candidate-friendly format. And these types of assessments, in addition to engaging and presenting a brand positive experience for your candidates, minority candidates like them even more than majority candidates. And so you get a much more favorable feedback from the candidate population, and about 2/3 of candidates prefer game-based overall. Job seekers want feedback. This is an easy one for you to provide, not just feedback on where they stand within the selection process, not just feedback on how long it'll take to make a hiring decision, but feedback on how they performed on aspects of the process. So using assessments where you can provide candidate-facing information, such as strengths, development opportunities, things that individuals need to improve in order to perform better and make it to the next level. I mean, what candidates really want early career is they want information that gives them self-insight and makes them better. That's one of the greatest advantages that you can provide them. And you could provide it to candidates, whether you hire them or not, providing a more favorable, a more informative type of selection process that's more likely to result in more favorable information being posted in social media and a leading edge type of experience for your candidates. And candidates were almost unanimous in wanting feedback. Only 1% of candidates in the survey disagreed with that statement. So a few key takeaways before I hand it over to Laura to talk about her part of today's presentation. 3 things I'd like you to take away from this one are that candidates still have a lot of options, and it's very important to provide them with a favorable experience based on some of the things that we talked about, being responsive, providing feedback, having a fair and objective process, letting them know where they stand, using assessments that are quick, that don't pigeonhole them based on limited experience, and so on, because they don't have to work for us. They will get other offers, especially in today's economy. We've got twice as many openings as there are individuals to fill them. And it's even more competitive for the types of roles that we're all hiring for today. Ensure your selection process is fair, candidate friendly, and very importantly, predictive. The name of the game is to make better hiring decisions. And so you need to be using tools seamlessly within your selection process in order to make better selection decisions and get the talent that you want and that you need. And you also have to be responsive to candidates and give feedback early and often. Thanks so much for spending a few minutes with me, and I'll hand it over to Laura from iCIMS to take it away.
Great. Thanks so much, Brad. And it really is so powerful to see the synergies across both sort of sets of research. And we'll get into that in just one second, and very consistent with what we've been seeing at iCIMS. So thank you all for taking a few minutes to join us today. I'm really pleased to be here and represent iCIMS. Who is iCIMS? We are the talent cloud company. We empower organizations to attract, engage, hire, and advance the right talent that builds a diverse and winning workforce. And I'm really proud to be doing that here at iCIMS as Chief People Officer. We are so fortunate to have a really engaged set of customers. We have over 4,000 customers. 40% of them are Fortune 100 customers who employ more than 34 million people around the world. And so we are really fortunate to engage with our customers and also leverage their data to provide us with amazing insights related to what's happening across the market and some of the trends. This particular piece of research is one that we call our class of report, and it's something we've been doing for 7 years. This year in particular, we actually engaged graduates from class of 2020, 2021, and 2022. So we have called this report the class of COVID report to better understand some of the nuances and impact that has existed for this generation in particular, and giving voice to our Gen Z employment seekers in particular. One thing that we also do is, in addition to surveying 1,000 graduates who fall into this bucket, we also engage with 500 US-based human resources professionals and recruiters. And we take those 2 perspectives and tie them together to see where there's both synergy and where there's some difference in terms of perspective. And that really informs a thoughtful approach to hiring, attracting this talent, and engaging with them throughout the process. So I'm really pleased to share the findings from this year's class of report, our class of COVID-19 report, and some general themes that have come through. Now, one thing I will call out is that for this class, Gen Z, what we heard from our class of report, some of this is probably unique to this particular generation, but a lot of it echoes themes that we're hearing in the broader marketplace, right? So as employers and as we're thinking about our strategy to attract and engage this population, I would say, while it's tied in some cases to our new entry-level talent organizations. So the first one is around salary expectations. Brad spoke a little bit about some of the expectations for our new entries in finding the right role. Now that we're talking about dollars. So the average salary that our entry-level talent is expecting is $70,000. Versus what employers are expecting to pay, which is $53,000. So you can see that there's definitely a gap there in terms of what our candidate expectations are versus what employers are willing to pay. And this is across all portions, majors. I see that question coming through across all pockets of the population. One thing that was concerning, as we think about attracting a broader and more diverse candidate set, is that our female college seniors actually expected to earn $10,000 less than their male counterparts. And so this just reiterates, Brad talked about the importance of fostering a diverse workforce. For us, it really also speaks to the fact of needing to be sure that we're being thoughtful about that gender gap as it relates to pay, being thoughtful as employers to ensure that there's pay equity, and needing to address that at the start as this entry-level talent is coming into the workforce, so that we make sure that we are closing that gap as employers along the way. This was an interesting one. We hit on so many different topics, and one of them was around professional wear, which particularly in this hybrid environment, and people have become a bit more casual in terms of their attire and how they're showing up because they're typically at home or they're in a hybrid environment. 1/3, 37% of the college seniors that were surveyed said that it shouldn't really matter what they wear. Whereas employers don't necessarily see that eye to eye. Several hiring pros, the kind of overarching theme was that appearing unprofessional was the top reason that entry-level talent was not selected to move on. And so this is another one of those spots where we've got to find a way to both communicate effectively and set those expectations for our candidates as employers, so that we can set them up for success. But an interesting difference there. All right. So Brad touched on this a little bit. We call this pre-interview sleuthing, right? The majority of our college grads are looking not only at employer sites, but researching on social media. They're looking at personal accounts, Instagram accounts, Facebook accounts, LinkedIn. They are going deep. Not only it goes far beyond Glassdoor. 7 out of 10 of them are definitely on employer sites, which is why it's so important to make sure that your career site is representative of who you are as an organization, that it's authentic, that it's giving light to the things that are important, so that these job seekers really can do the right level of research to ensure that there's a match from an employer and an employee standpoint. And this is one of those things that is so apparent. We're finding that the entry-level talent, this generation in particular, is going deep on understanding the drivers and the values for organizations because they want to stay with an employer long-term, right? So for so many generations, we've heard, oh, these are job hoppers, our entry-level talent, they're not loyal, they don't want to stay, they're looking for the next opportunity. And our research actually showed that 91% of them care how long that they stay with an employer. And if we move on to the next slide, you'll actually see that 2/3 of them want to stay with an employer long-term, right? They want to see a career path for themselves. But back to what Brad was saying, if they don't see that path, if they don't see that alignment between what their aspirations and the employer, then they are likely to be looking, right? That's why this upfront process, that's why really understanding the drivers, the organizational values, the ability to be successful and drive a career at an organization is part of that upfront sleuthing, as we call it, for this generation. They want to make sure that there's a strong alignment so that they can stay for a long period of time because they want to. We talked about work-life balance, and this is definitely one of the themes that resonates quite a bit. And again, one of those that we're hearing in the market more broadly, not just for Generation Z, right? These candidates were very, very, very clear in that they want to work to live, not live to work. And they don't believe that they need a 9-to-5 career to be successful. They want to make sure that an organization that they come and work for and the job that they are taking gives them ample time to prioritize their personal passions outside of the work environment. And wellness at work. This is such a big topic. This came through loud and clear. Not only do employees want to see that there's a dedication to overall wellness, mental health in particular was one theme that came through. 2/3 of this generation really want and expect their employer to support their mental health and overall well-being. And for women, even more so. So, a couple of points that we just hit on, really at the end of the day, it really is that the workforce is changing. We are in the midst of it. It's not just with this generation coming, it's with the broader macro themes that we have talked about today. We want to be sure that employers are strategic in how they're thinking about their total talent acquisition strategy, the initiatives, the way that they're engaging the candidate base. And so very clear that one size does not fit all. You want to rethink exactly what you know about this population, also how you demonstrate your organization and show it authentically from a cultural standpoint to make sure that there really is that match at the onset, and really demonstrating those paths to success for this entry-level talent as they want to be with their employer, longer than what we've seen in more recent generations. And with that, Meredith, I think I'll hand it back over to you for any questions.
Okay, we will open it up to the first question. What was the total sample size again? Laura, that was to you.
So, okay, for the iCIMS report, it was about 1,000 college seniors and 500 HR professionals in the US.
Thank you. Is this for any specific majors?
Sorry, I couldn't get myself off mute there. No specific majors. This was across all schools, all majors, geos, etc.
Thank you. How can I get copies of both reports?
Yeah, so we're very happy to make the criteria survey available to everyone who joins today. The fastest way would be to email us at brad.schneider@criteriacorp.com, or you could download it from our website at www.criteriacorp.com. We'll also make it available to you, Meredith, to send if you like.
Thank you. Thanks, Brad. With remote, I'm sorry, go ahead, Laura.
Oh, no, I was just going to say also available for on iCIMS.com on our insights page. You'll have access to this report and our monthly insights reports, which give some additional, perspective.
Thank you. With remote work, how are companies keeping culture top of mind? Are there any examples you can share?
You know what we see a lot of is a greater emphasis on culture, because to the point, there really aren't those hallway conversations, those reassurances that you get from people by physically interacting with them. It's just those kinds of things just aren't there. And so organizations are trying to come up with ways to engage their workforces through more structured processes, more remote types of events. We're seeing a lot of organizations deliberately increasing their communication, doing things like meeting with their teams in more regular all staffs, having departments lead online office hours to make sure that people throughout the organization know what's going on within their departments, celebrating successes more publicly, building new pages on their websites, touting accomplishments, celebrating wins, recognizing people. So in the absence of that sort of unstructured, casual, human interface that has been largely lost through the pandemic, organizations are creating structure to try and offset that and to create as many of those interactions as they reasonably can. And to some extent it's working. However, just one view on it, I don't think there's any substitute for seeing people in person once in a while and having those interactions. And I think organizations are feeling that too.
Thank you, Brad. Did the survey address in-person versus virtual versus hybrid work style?
Yes, ours did, and what we found is everyone wants a little bit of everything, and so there is an expectation of this generation to be in the office at least for part of the week, but they want the flexibility to also work remotely and in a hybrid environment. And so it's kind of consistent with what we're hearing, right? Which is that for this generation in particular, they do see the value of engaging with others in person and do expect to go into the office for some period of their work week, but they also really demand that flexibility to not have to do it every day.
Thank you. Along the same lines, does the data say anything about how the class of COVID-19 views remote jobs versus hybrid work?
We did not get into sort of a preference around remote over hybrid, but it was very clear in the data that there is this balance that most of the class was looking for, to have a bit of both versus total remote for this generation. I think especially both for social engagement, but also recognizing that this entry-level talent, they are there to learn, right? And learn from their peers and from their leaders and hear and see what's happening. And you miss some of that or a lot of that in a fully remote environment. And so there was this expectation or preference to have both.
Yeah, and we found the same, that there was a desire for flexibility, and it feeds into the whole work-life balance thing. So people, a lot of people want that flexibility and to be able to have that remote option.
Thank you. Did you also survey any online institutions? And if so, which?
So our survey was of candidates looking for positions, and so we didn't limit it or stratify it based on the organizations they were applying for or the types. We did look at industries, and it cut across all industries.
Same for us.
Thank you. Does this data come from any minority serving institutions?
Our survey was conducted directly by us with 1,967 active job candidates.
And again, similar to the universities, it was open to candidates. So it was from any candidate / institution that was willing to respond.
Thank you. What is considered long-term? And Brad, I believe this is to your session. It's posted in the very beginning. So what is considered long-term?
Yeah, so if it refers to the criteria study, then it has to do with individuals wanting to know what their opportunities are with a given organization going forward. So with campus recruiting, often you're looking to hire individuals into management trainee programs or professional types of programs. However, the unwritten ask is often, does this individual have the potential to go into leader level roles in the future? And most candidates want that too. So it's staying with an organization for a reasonable amount of someone's career. So we're not talking months, we're talking at least a handful of years to help get that individual to the next level within their career.
Thank you. Is there any additional advice on how to overcome the gap between incoming expectations for salary, such as 70,000, versus employer salary capabilities, 53,000? It's hard to even get people to look at job postings if they are falling below 50,000. And this is a big issue for government agencies that traditionally pay lower salaries than private industry or large corporations. Either of you want to speak to that? It's a comment.
Yeah, it's a great comment. And it definitely, there's a lot of nuance across industries, right? And there are a lot of things that are happening. It's a great point that not everybody's looking at the job posting in, in some cases where it's mandated to show the range, there's definitely insight provided. But what we have heard from this generation, and we hear it as well, is that there is a value placed on, in addition to total comp, total rewards right? And the broader benefits offerings that exist. This is a generation that values having security in their, their medical benefits, their dental benefits, the broader benefits offering that an organization provides. And so, in some cases, one thought that I have is just about how you amplify, across your broader sort of career site, your recruitment marketing, some of those other benefits that may counter that just pure dollars and cents that exist from a salary standpoint.
We've got two more that came in. Was there any information you can share about how candidates view career fairs versus other types of recruiting or branding events? Did they prefer virtual versus in person? And what kind of alternative events do they like?
Yeah, so we didn't ask that specific question within the survey. However, I would relate it to a desire for flexibility and convenience on the part of candidates. If you make the candidate selection process cumbersome and require individuals to go to different places to take part, as opposed to just logging onto their computer or applying by phone, you're adding time, you're adding complexity to a selection process, and you're probably adding inconvenience for candidates. So making it as easy as possible, as fast and as accurate as you can is likely the way to go.
Thank you. I do believe this is the last question, so please post all questions now. How do they view rotational programs, leadership development, or mentorship opportunities versus starting out as a higher tilted employee?
Yeah, so the research on mentorship is very favorable, and of course it would be. I mean, if you look at the types of things that help individuals become more successful, get up to speed faster, and advance to higher level roles, one of the things that leads to that is receptivity to feedback. And in a mentorship program, you're getting feedback from an individual with whom you're developing a relationship, and an individual who's in a position oftentimes to know the business, to know the career path, to have a network of individuals throughout the organization across departments. And so the favorable impact of mentoring is well established. We did not look at rotations within the survey. However, the opportunity to have different opportunities to learn new things and to use those to get up to speed faster across the business is typically viewed as favorable.
Yep, I would echo that. We didn't touch specifically on, one type of career advancement or development initiative, but that did come through loud and clear that there is an expectation around career advancement opportunities and understanding on how someone can build their path and what investment a company is making in someone's ability to do that.
Thank you, Laura and Brad. You can kindly give closing thoughts and then we'll end the session. Oh yeah. Nope, one more question. Sorry. How do you balance ease of applying with adding candidate assessments to the selection process?
Yeah, so having assessments in your selection process makes the selection process more efficient, faster, and more convenient for candidates. If you think about the old days, when individuals would have to come in and physically interview across a number of individuals, the amount of time, the travel, the inconvenience, if you will, for the candidate, and the lack of information, the lack of objective and accurate information that's gathered in those older processes, it's really night and day compared to using online assessments. You can use an online assessment to pick up someone's cognitive ability in as little as 5 or 10 minutes. You could pick up their personality characteristics in as little as 7 or 8 minutes. And so in about a 15 to 20 minute experience, you get a really comprehensive read on, is this individual smart enough to learn this job? Are they going to make good decisions? Can they problem solve? Do they have the intellectual horsepower to be successful in more senior level positions down the road? And do they have the personality that's going to lead to their success? Can you trust them? Are they high in integrity? Are they empathetic? Do they get along with others? Are they collaborative? Are they ambitious? Are they achievement oriented, self-driven? Do they have a strong view toward work, dependable, reliable, willing to go above and beyond and do what it takes? And then after those basics, you've got job specific characteristics that you can tap with these assessments, like sales ability and persuasiveness, customer service orientation, safety awareness for production type roles, leadership, dominance, emotional maturity, someone's willingness to subjugate their own immediate gratification for what's in the best interest of the business, being able to interact well with others. These are all things that you can pick up pretty accurately and very objectively across any candidate pool using very brief online assessments. And if you integrate with a great applicant tracking system provider like iCIMS, then the process can be even more seamless. So it's really a win-win to use assessments. And I'll add just one more quick thought. By making better selection decisions through using assessments, you're creating this upward spiral of talent. You're reducing turnover. You're filling future vacancies because the company is growing. And so you're able to make smarter, more strategic selection decisions, not just on day one, but going forward year after year because of all of the upward potential that assessments have for your business. And we've been able to prove it time and time again, and certainly happy to discuss further.
Thank you. Also, how can we better convince hiring managers that I'm concerned about using some assessments and being fairly evaluated, especially for individuals with disabilities? Is there any data available about how those candidates view this practice?
Yeah, so the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 is very clear in terms of how to use a selection process. Once a candidate identifies themselves as a qualified applicant with a disability, many assessments have technologies built into them, like extended time or being screen reader compatible. In some instances, and the decision needs to be made on an individual case-by-case basis, sometimes the right move is not to use an assessment for that individual, but rather to interview for the characteristics needed for success for a given role. So every situation with a candidate is unique. And what's pretty valuable is that candidates know what they want and what they need in terms of reasonable accommodations under the ADA. And so they'll tell you typically what type of accommodation they want in order to ensure that they've got a fair shot at demonstrating their true capability within your selection process.
Thank you. This was posted during the answer the question. The last question should start with, how can I better convince hiring managers that the assessments being used will not screen out individuals with disabilities?
Yeah, so I mean, it's really a conversation. You're making the case to these individuals that assessments will not hurt individuals with disabilities. And the information, the data demonstrate that using assessments is a more objective and fairer process than virtually any type of selection process that's out there. That being said, there will be times when candidates should not be evaluated with an assessment. If someone is, and I'm just making up an example, if someone is, completely blind, then you're not going to be able to give them a cognitive test because they're not going to be able to see it. And even if someone were to read the questions to them, the test may have shapes in it. You can't read a shape. So in those instances, just to pick a very extreme example, interviewing the individual for their cognitive capacity is going to be more likely to be a better approach. Tell me about a time when you had to solve a complex problem. What was the situation? What did you do? What was the outcome? Those sorts of things. So it really is something that needs to be addressed on an individual case-by-case basis. However, in general, assessments are a fairer, more accurate, and more objective way to select individuals for a role for all types of populations, whether they identify as having a disability under the ADA or not.
Thank you. I believe this would be the last question. Any feedback on pre-recorded / on-demand interviewing experience?
So what we found is this is very favorable as well, because organizations get a chance to provide a realistic preview to candidates who are applying for jobs. You could have the CEO of the company talk about how they started out very early and their experiences and what a great place it is to work. You could have employees and the types of roles people are applying for, talk about the jobs they're doing and how much they enjoy it. Two advantages to that. One is it creates a brand positive experience for candidates. It also provides a realistic preview so candidates could see the pros and cons of the jobs for which they're applying. Also, if you use behaviorally based interviewing, which is that tell me about a situation, what you did, what was the outcome type of format with appropriate scoring, then you get a much more accurate and predictive process than you do with more subjective types of interviewing processes. So the feedback's been very good. There's a recent study that just came out talking about on-demand interviewing, how it's highly accurate, more so than other outdated processes. And so the feedback so far has been strong.
Give it another minute or two to see if any other questions come in. Go ahead and give closing thoughts, Brad and Laura. Thank you.
Yeah, Laura, do you want to go first?
Sure. Thanks everyone for having us. Thanks to Criteria and Denise as well, and to all of you for joining. I think it's very apparent that every generation is going to have some nuance, right, which gives voice to some of these broader macro themes that exist. I would say, these all help inform and really refine your talent acquisition strategy and how you're thinking about attracting, engaging, hiring, and advancing talent internally and externally. But the thing that I would say resonates the most and that is most important is how you as an organization ensure that whatever you're putting out for your candidates is authentic, right? And doing that, to Brad's point, via video, via your career site, via the process that you're putting people through, being upfront about the total rewards offering, the mental, wellness offerings, everything that you have, it's going to resonate most and best and set you up for best success if it's an authentic approach to what your organization truly offers, so that you can ensure that success of your new hires and the retention of your hires coming through your program and process.
Yeah, and I'd of course echo that. This has been really great. We really enjoy working with many of you within the campus recruiting space. For those of you who have not yet worked with Criteria, we're really delighted to have this opportunity to introduce ourselves to you, and would love to have the opportunity to show you the favorable outcomes and benefits that using online assessments can have to help you make better selection and promotional decisions, to help you have a fairer and more streamlined process that's more efficient and engaging, providing candidates with a brand positive experience that makes them just rave about your organization. So feel free to reach out. Anything we can do to help.
Thank you, panelists, Criteria Corp, and iCIMS for a very informative session. And thank you, participants, for attending today's webinar. This officially concludes the webinar, and you may now sign off.